Hey guys, I'm gonna be out here in the garage rigging up my wife's kayak, and I get a lot of questions about putting electronics and rod holders, especially on these style kayaks. Um, Especially if you're gonna do any kind of catfishing or musky fishing or fish for large predatory fish. You want things to be sturdy and strong. So I figured I'd bring you guys along today and show you how I do everything. Yeah, first thing first here, just a standard new canoe bow mount, trolling motor mount, and your standard quick disconnect plate bolted to it. I do go with these 70 amp plugs. Kind of like them. They got the covers on them. Do not get the little cheap Minn Kota ones that are like 50 amp. They only have two prongs on them. They're really small. We've had several friends have them catch on fire and burn up, and that's probably the last thing you want on a plastic kayak. Unfortunately, I'd already installed this one on hers. Just waiting for other parts and stuff to come in. These are 3-prong. They are set up for a 24-volt system. But you literally just use 2 out of the 3. So you'll use your ground and then either of the power. Just make sure that you remember which one you've got connected on your trolling motor side of things. I'll show that later on when I get everything done, but it's quick, easy. You can plug it in. Also, I know New Canoe sells a kit. It was quite expensive. I forget how much, but doing it this way is maybe 70, 80 bucks for everything, including the 6-aught wire. So and I like that plug a whole lot better than the Anderson style plugs that theirs come with. Uh, but they seem to do pretty good. They don't burn up. A lot of my friends that are in the kayak fishing, especially trolling and stuff like that, are using these style plugs nowadays just to keep from burning their boats up. Also, when running that wire, man, if you have a magnet, fishing magnet, or if you don't, I'd suggest you try to borrow one, or it'd be worth buying one if you're going to do this on a couple of boats. Literally just tie an old nut onto a piece of fishing line, and you just drag this along the side of the boat there. And I pulled all my wire from there all the way. I use the hatch until we get these things drilled out. But all the way to my hatch. It took 3 minutes to do. Instead of trying to fish it through, and I've seen people lift bolts. I've tried it a million ways. I have a mile worth of wire in that thing between the 2 batteries, fish finder, all the different lights and stuff that boat has on it. That magnet right here has always come in clutch. I've actually borrowed this for a friend. I need to give it back to him. I've had it for probably longer than he has. Keep borrowing it and then giving it back and borrowing it again to do other people's boats. Alright, we're going to run that wire out of a grommet about right here. Just so it's closer, you can see I've got a eyelet there already to tie a battery box down with. I'll show you that later when it comes time. I wanted to move it there just so it's closer to the box. I don't have a bunch of wire showing. I don't like to have a ton of wires showing. And then, that's the factory spot, a little cutout here. But then I would have like a foot of wire just sitting in the back of the boat. I'm not, try to keep things as clean as possible. All right, next we're just going to take a drill and a fairly small drill bit. The screws that come with this are very, very small here. If you can see, they're just little stainless steel screws. You can mark it or tape it off. I'm just gonna straighten it up. Drill the 2 holes. I've done this a million times. I've got about 10 of these on my other boat, I feel like. And I've done it to many other boats. So I'm gonna get it lined up to where I want it there. Make sure it'll be kind of straight and level. Looks pretty good. And then I'm just gonna drill these 2 holes here. Alright. Now, I'm gonna mount that, and then I'm gonna use that as a pilot hole for the actual wires when they come up through there. So give me just a second here and I'll get it screwed on and we'll get back to the pilot hole. Kind of the same thing here. We got that mounted. Just got a larger drill bit that'll be just the same size. It might be a little bit bigger than that hole, but it'll be fine. Just drill it out. Just make sure you do go slow. You don't want to drill a hole through especially something like this. It's a $2,000 or $1,500 kayak. All right, once you get your hole and stuff drilled out, I go through, cut off my excess. I just run as much wire as I think I need. And then I actually strip it back to where I've got quite a long piece. It actually goes all the way down. Of just the 2 wires, I'm going to pull this off and I'll show you how I'll make this look a little bit better in my opinion. I use the some heat shrink and some wire loom. Alright guys, once I get my plate back off there, I did end up having to drill that hole out just a little bit bigger with a larger drill bit. I don't do anything with the grommet. It'll stretch. I'll show you how to get it on there. But you're going to want to come out here. I just kind of reached out, work it through. Probably should have taped these together to make it easier. There we go. I'll just pull these through. I'll show you what I do with them. Make them look a little bit better so you don't just have some bare wires running through there. A little slack. I got them all the way through. I'll show you what I do. Let me grab my other stuff here. Alright, so I just took 1/2-inch heat shrink. I run it over it. I take your basic cheap Harbor Freight heat gun. Shrink it. Let it heat shrink do what heat shrink does. I try to keep the heat kind of low because I don't want to melt the boat or anything else. I do that clearly for appearance. I gotta cut a piece off here. I got some 1/2-inch. This is just like braided wire loom. I really like using it. It's kind of clean. Take a little section of it, cut it. Make sure you use a good sharp knife. It'll fray really bad if you don't. And I'm just going to run that from there to there. I'll run a piece of heat shrink over it. I'll show you what it looks like when we get everything done. All right, now so you can see I've got the heat shrink on this end. I've still got to thread my section through. Heat shrink there, that braided wire loom. I'm just going to clean it up. I'll show you what it looks like once I get the battery box and everything connected to it. It looks a whole lot better than just wires running there. All right, so I've just got that wire running into my box there. I've got my battery in a battery tray. I've got a 60 amp relay over on the top there. You can set and reset, cut the power off to the battery. Then I also have an Anderson plug. That's how I run my chargers on everything. I just flush mounted it under there towards the bottom, that way it's out of the way. But this is how I set everything up. I do have a second or a plug here with a switch. It's not wired in case we put some lighting or any kind of auxiliary plugs or electronics on it. I forgot to get terminal ends big enough. I thought I had some spares, but I don't, so that'll be the last thing I have to do. Alright guys, I got everything pretty much finished up. Got my rod holders mounted. These are just monster rod holders. Of course, I've got 4 on here. These plates are custom made. They're 1/4 inch 6063 aluminum that I bent up and bolted them down. I really don't suggest using plastic rod holders, especially if you're using bigger fish, and not mount them to a single rail. The rails they're in there pretty good, but when it gets hot, they bend and flex quite a bit, and I would just be terrified to tear something up. Let me tell you, I've hooked in a 60 plus pound fish this way on my boat, and that thing's not going anywhere. You can actually pick the boat up by the rod holders. I probably wouldn't do that, but I have done that as well. Of course, you got all four. This is a whole lot better for like suspend drift, but you can definitely troll like this. I did on my old setup for several years before I built the green kayak. They do they do sell these brackets. It's actually for the landing gear, like adapter. I actually have those on mine. They are $100 a set. They're stainless steel. They're really nice if you don't have the means or want to, build your own. But like I said, you would spend $200 on 4 plates just to hold your rod holders on. It's fairly easy. That 1/4 inch aluminum's not going nowhere. If you're mildly crafty, you can definitely set this thing up like that. And then of course we got the kayak crate. I think it's a flambe. I don't even know if they make that like a double decker crate now. A couple rod holders. I've had that thing for, I don't know, 7-8 years now, I think. And of course we got the trolling motor up front, all set up and ready to go. The wife will be very happy. I will be happy. I don't have to pull her around from place to place anymore. She can just kind of take herself off. She's got a paddle, but usually if we go long distances, I would have to pull her, a couple miles up the river and then let her go. Alright guys, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thanks for watching if you stayed this long. And again, I'm going to put all the links in the bottom there for all of the products and hardware and stuff. I got pretty much everything come off of Amazon except for the motor guide, trolling motor, of course. If you got any questions, just let me know. Have a good one.